It's incredibly easy to zip past this dull and simple structure on the 5700 block of South Hoover Street. It doesn't draw much attention, and its most vulnerable parts are heavily secured with wrought iron. It sits tucked away just behind the local super outlet store on Slauson Avenue, yet just decades ago, this tiresome brown building had a vibrant history of welcoming and saving lives in Southwest Los Angeles. This was the site of the South Hoover Hospital, a former private hospital and a major maternity center in the burgeoning Southwest Los Angeles region. But how did this private hospital with a community promise become a decaying structure on South Hoover Street? This is usually the part where I show you what the building looked like in its prime, but in my research, I found no images of the hospital itself. So let's jump in anyway. The South Hoover Hospital spans back to early 1939 when Dr. Morris J. Pilson opened a medical office at 5700 South Hoover Street. The construction was simple and described as a concrete and steel build that cost a total of $25,000. The wide-stretching private hospital building, which was open for 24 hours, had the capacity to handle 10 maternity cases and 12 general cases, while accommodating for a handful of medical offices. Dr. Pilson opened his private practice after accumulating more than 17 years of maternity experience, and his track record of delivering babies came in handy when the South Hoover Hospital welcomed newborns weekly. In July of 1943, Harry and Lorraine Hardwig sued South Hoover Hospital for $500,000 in damages after a baby mix-up. Sort of. When the Hardwigs gave birth on June 27, 1943, the partnering physician Dr. J.M. Andrews at the South Hoover Hospital told the Hardwigs they were parents to a new baby boy. The doctor asked them if they would like to perform a circumcision for the baby, which they both agreed to, and the physician also signed the official birth certificate, which stated the baby's sex assigned at birth was male. When the Hardwigs went home on July 3rd, they undressed their baby and discovered they had a girl in their possession. Believing they had the wrong baby, the Hardwigs sued for negligence, carelessness, and abduction. In the hospital's defense, Dr. Andrews was quoted saying there must have been some mistake because the baby looked like a boy when delivered. According to the Los Angeles Times, the South Hoover Hospital had a bed shortage which was likely caused by the exponential growth in families within Southwest Los Angeles at the time, and Los Angeles, period. After a half year's worth of litigation, the Superior Court ruled Dr. J.M. Andrews, Dr. Morris Pilson, and the South Hoover Hospital responsible for the baby mix-up. Shortly after, however, the Hardwigs settled with the South Hoover Hospital's insurance company for a substantial cash settlement. Even with these setbacks, the hospital continued to be a center for maternity, continuing birth announcements for babies, twins, and even a case of triplets. In 1948, during the height of its presence, Dr. Pilson led a massive expansion of the hospital, adding a two-story addition to the original building located at 5710 South Hoover Street. By 1956, Victor Pilson, the son of Morris Pilson, took over the practice at the hospital. Things, however, began to shift in the 70s, a few years after the Watts Rebellion. Birth announcements and publications became less common. The hospital, however, was still hiring nurses, but its feature story presence in newspapers fell like a rock. In 1978, the Area 24 Professional Standards Review Organization Incorporated announced it would be reviewing local community hospitals across Los Angeles, including the South Hoover Hospital. In an earlier video retelling the story of the Broadway Hospital, the Professional Standards Review Organization exposed that hospital for abnormally high death rates among its Medicare patients. In the case of the South Hoover Hospital, I did not find any public remarks made by the review organization. According to a Legacy.com obituary for Victor Pilson, the South Hoover Hospital closed towards the end of the 20th century, and the property was later donated to an unidentified church. The last record of the South Hoover Hospital conducting business in South LA was its hospital expense data from 1977, which showed a steady stream of admissions. By 1980, the hospital building appeared to operate as a board and care facility based on newspaper advertisement listings. In 2001, the property was listed for sale for $550,000. The building was briefly owned by a real estate broker between 2007 and 2009, where it found new life as a hardware store, but it was later sold to an out-of-state limited liability company, 5700 Hoover, that was formed in Nevada in 2009. In 2011, the 5700 Hoover elected to modify their certificate of occupancy, and the former hospital building was permitted to be used as office space. Come to 2014, the Los Angeles Times published an investigative report on 5700 South Hoover, which was renting shared rooms illegally to roughly 42 low-income individuals. 5700 South Hoover had never been permitted for residential use and was still permitted for office use at this time. The Los Angeles Fire Department called for the rentals to cease immediately because it was unsafe and unsuited for living arrangements. Nearly a year later, the owner of 5700 South Hoover elected to change its use into a philanthropic building, boarding up several of the openings. Over the past 3 years, it's operated as temporary housing for disabled and transitioning people and veterans. Within the photos on its website, you can almost imagine the interior of the former South Hoover Hospital. While the owner of the building is destined to make it into a living quarter, the former hospital was listed for sale for $3 million as of August of 2023. In its description, the seller made a subtle plea to the city to purchase the property to create low-income and transitional housing. Despite being built with good intentions, the future of the South Hoover Hospital has been unsteady for more than 4 decades. We can only imagine what will become of this building, but this is yet another example on why it's important to know the history of buildings across South Los Angeles and LA as a whole.